Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Saturdays in Stores podcast brought to you right here on the Crossover channel. My name is Kanaye, and we have another portal acquisition to talk about in the world of UConn basketball today. This past week, Alec Millender transferred from IU Indianapolis, committed to UConn on Thursday afternoon. It might have been morning. I completely forget when during the day that announcement came out, but via his Instagram, Alec Millender announced that he will be joining Dan Hurley and this UConn Huskies program for the 25-26 season. Really good depth piece in terms of an ad for this program, I think. And I'm going to talk about it today in this episode. Before we get into that, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on this channel, please engage with our videos in any way you can, whether it's liking them, subscribing to our channel, or just telling other people about our channel. Really does help with YouTube's algorithm, just being able to get these videos out to a larger audience and continuing to be able to grow this channel. So let's get into it. Alec Millender is going to be a sixth-year senior. He previously played 4 years at Wayne State, which is at the Division II level, before transferring to IU Indianapolis for his first grad year. There, he averaged 8.2 points per game, 3.7 assists, almost 2 rebounds. I think most notably, he shot 43.5% from three, so he's going to be a really important depth piece to add in terms of his ability to come in and bring the knockdown shooting. At least we hope. Of course, you never know how guys are going to play when they jump up a level from the mid-major to the high major level, especially at a school like UConn. Obviously, we've seen so many examples of guys who make that jump in the level of competition they're playing, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. But this is a guy who I think is definitely more so being brought in to push a lot of the key rotation starter guys in practice. And when needed, he can come on the court and contribute. I do believe this probably is going to be the last move that we see UConn make this offseason, just considering that adding Alec Millender is going to bring the scholarship limit or is going to bring the team's total scholarship roster total to 13, which is the NCAA limit. I know there is talks about the NCAA increasing that limit to 15, but I'm at this time unaware of whether that's going to transpire over this current offseason or if that's something we're going to see next offseason. But again, I think this is an ad that really isn't something that's groundbreaking, good nor bad. Like I talked about, he's a guy who's really experienced. He's going to be going into sixth year of college basketball. He is going to be able to play this year because he is being granted a medical redshirt year. And I mean, he's a guy who has a lot of experience playing college basketball. Like I mentioned, he played at Wayne State, where I believe he was a 4-year starter, if I'm not mistaken. And this past year at IU and Indy, he played in 32 games and started in 25. And I mean, he contributed to what I think was a fairly solid IU Indy team. They didn't have the greatest record, but I definitely think they were able to make a little bit of a run in the conference they were in at points in the year. Now, I do also think it's important to note that he was actually ranked 12th nationally in assist to turnover ratio with a 2.95. I think that's really good, just considering that he's going to bring some playmaking on top of his shooting. Of course, he's kind of not really the most dynamic player. Again, he's kind of coming in to be a shooter. He stands at 6'1", 185 pounds, so he actually does have a really solid frame for someone of his height. And again, he's going to bring experience. I largely see him in a role where he's probably the third string point guard who's going to come in if it does happen for the likes of Silas Demery Jr. or Malachi Smith, when those guys are in foul trouble perhaps, or they just need a breather. But in terms of his tape from IU Indy, again, I think what immediately catches anyone's attention is his shooting. He was really, really good. Like I just mentioned not too long ago, he shot 43.5% from three this past year. So, of course, he's bringing high-level shooting on a really solid volume as well. He's also really solid in attacking ball screens and being able to get into paint. He got a lot of paint touches from what I saw in his tape at IU Indy. And he's actually a fairly solid finisher going to the basket off a screen. So that he's definitely going to bring a lot of playmaking in that aspect. But again, I'm not really all too sure how much he will be playing this upcoming season at UConn. But again, if he is ever in a situation where we need him on the court, like I just talked about, Silas or Malachi is in foul trouble or just hurt, need a breather, then this is a guy who I'm fairly comfortable with handling the ball and being able to execute offense. Now, again, the height thing does concern me a little bit. Both with him and Malachi, I think I definitely talked about that a little bit in the video where I talked about Malachi's commitment. But again, or at least in the Big East, you worry about smaller guards. But again, he's probably going to be the third string point guard. And not to say I don't want him to get on the court, but you hope that we're not in this. UConn isn't in a position where Silas and Malachi can't be on the floor, and they have no choice but to turn to Alec. But again, I think if they really have to, they're in a spot where they have no choice but to put Alec on the floor. I'm not all too concerned. Again, you don't know how many major guys are going to play at the high major level until you actually see them play. But again, I don't think he's going to have the largest role on the team this year. I really just think it was a really good depth add. This offseason really just very much reminds me of how Hurley and his staff kind of constructed the roster going into the 2022-23 season with just, I very much feel Malachi Smith and adding Alec Millender are very reminiscent of adding the likes of Joey California, Hemeline, and Hassan Diarra. And I really do got to say, I very much like how this team and roster is getting put together. And like I just mentioned, I'm pretty sure this probably is going to be the last move that UConn makes. And again, it was just a really good depth piece. I know I talked about in the last week's episode about the Dwayne Karoma commitment, which if you haven't seen that video, definitely check that out. I did mention that UConn was in talks and he did go on a visit, that guy being Armani Ziegler, the younger brother of Zakai Ziegler, who is suing the NCAA right now, by the way. And so that's a topic for perhaps another video if me and Josh ever cover that. But yeah, he played at St. Peter's and just ultimately didn't commit to UConn, which is why I think we landed Alec Millender. And again, as a ad that's not really groundbreaking, good nor bad in terms of how much he's going to bring to the program. But again, I really like what I saw out of his tape. He's really good in being able to get up and down the floor, score in transition. He's a tough guard. I think he's going to mesh with Hurley really well. He's a Chicago native, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a really productive career at Wayne State, was a really solid high school player. And again, he wasn't a star at IU Indy, but you're not necessarily looking for stars at this point in the portal if you are UConn and Dan Hurley and his staff. And when it comes to recruiting out of the portal, I think largely they were just looking in the last three ads, honestly, between Jacob Ross, Dwayne Karoma, and now Alec Millender. They were just looking for depth pieces, guys who are, again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, going to be able to push the starters and key rotation players in practice every single day, bring high energy, and just be good teammates. Of course, I really don't know how much those three guys are going to play. Add Jacob Furphy into that mix as well. But I do think there is talent, evidently across all four of those guys. And if they do see minutes at any point this year where they are on the floor outside of garbage time, then I'm not all too concerned. I think they're going to be able to bring different skill sets, each of those guys. Again, like I talked about several times throughout this video, Alec Millender showcased he is a really elite shooter, really great in catch and shoot opportunities, was really good in shooting off of screens as well. He's able to kind of get to a little bit of a sidestep three, as well as being able to hit threes off the dribble too. Didn't see all too much of off the dribble bag from him in terms of shot creation there, nor did I really see him get into the mid-range all too much. But again, like I mentioned, he was really good at scoring in transition, good finisher around the rim, well, when he had a lot of momentum behind him in his takes to the hoop. But that's pretty much going to take care of everything I have for this episode today. Just a really brief episode, just touching on what I feel like is a really good depth add. I really do feel like this UConn team is really, really deep now. The backcourt is absolutely loaded with the likes of Silas Demery Jr., Solo Ball, Malachi Smith, Braylon Mullins. Of course, you add Jay Ross, both Jay Rosses into the mix. We'll see how much Jacob actually sees the floor this year. But you also have Jacob Furphy, too, who, again, not sure how much he'll see the floor. Same thing goes with Alec Millender. But again, I really do like how the depth of this team is coming together. I think they're really deep at every position at this point. Loaded at the wing. Dwayne Karoma was a great add who can both play the 3, the 4, can play small ball 5 as well. Push Ryba to challenge him for a little bit of those backup 5 minutes coming off the bench for Terrace Reed. And again, at center, you got Terrace, Eric Ryba, Roma. Things you're loaded. Like I just talked about the backcourt. Really, really loaded there too. And let me just tell you, I think this team really does have a good chance to be really fun to watch. Electric team, high scoring, being able to get up and down the floor. Hopefully bring better defense than what we saw out of the program this past year. You can only hope for that. I think we will see a lot more of a defensive improvement going to next year. But I think that pretty much takes care of everything I have on Alec Millender committing to UConn. Again, congrats to Alec. Happy to have you here in STORRS, Connecticut. Really, really excited to see the Huskies play in the 25-26 season. The season can't come any sooner. Got to wait almost 6 months, so, it's tough. But yeah, and just going forward, like I've talked about several times now, It's not going to be every Saturday. Of course, if some new big news comes out, there's not going to be any moves. I'm pretty much guaranteeing going forward. So probably won't be too many videos about that, of course, just considering I don't think UConn is going to make any other moves just because they hit the roster limit with 13 scholarship players. But again, if any big news comes out, maybe some practice tape, I'll definitely be sure to make a video maybe with my reactions to that. But until the next episode, whenever that is, I'll see you all next time.